He was thrown out of the hospital without even being allowed to explain himself, as if he were just another problem to be rid of. A black doctor who had dedicated his life to helping others suddenly found himself deemed useless in the eyes of those who saw his skin color as an obstacle. But when Marcus Wilson opened his own clinic, the world changed. For many, it became the last hope. Yet what he did to those who had once humiliated him would shock even the most seasoned observers. But let's start from the beginning. Marcus Wilson, a young and promising doctor who had completed his residency at one of the country's best hospitals, decided to return to his hometown to serve his community. After years of working in overcrowded clinics in impoverished areas, he had gained enough experience and was ready to move on. He sought employment at a prestigious city hospital. He dreamed of using his knowledge on a higher level, helping more people, and hoped that this hospital would welcome him with respect and professionalism. But when he arrived at the city hospital on the morning of his interview, his hopes quickly crumbled. Before he could even greet anyone, the secretary greeted him with a cold stare. She didn't even ask why he was there and immediately began questioning him, asking if he had lost his way. When Marcus explained that he was a doctor and had come for an interview, her face twisted with displeasure. The look on her face wasn't just one of irritation, it was contempt. She seemed unable to believe that this young black man could be a doctor. "Wait here," she said curtly, pressing a few buttons on the phone before glancing at him again as if he were something unpleasant. Marcus stood in the hospital lobby, feeling the eyes of staff and patients on him. Every glance seemed judgmental, as if everyone around him doubted that he could be anything more than a patient or a low-wage worker. A few minutes later, another doctor, a man in his 40s with an arrogant expression, approached him. Without offering a handshake, the doctor looked Marcus up and down as if evaluating his appearance rather than his professional qualifications. "Are you here by mistake?" he asked with barely concealed mockery. "We don't have any openings. Everything's filled," the doctor added, not giving Marcus a chance to speak. Marcus tried to explain that he had arranged an interview with the head of the surgery department, but the doctor interrupted him. "Look, we've got enough problems as it is. If you don't want the job, fine, don't take it. You'll find other places more suited to your abilities," he said dryly, as if not listening at all. Marcus realized that arguing was pointless and left the hospital with a heavy heart. For Marcus, this wasn't the first time he had encountered prejudice, but every time, he hoped that something had changed. However, this time, standing on the doorstep of the hospital, he had considered a new beginning. He felt he had come face to face with systemic racism in its harshest form. Once again, his skin color had become the main barrier, despite all his accomplishments. Disheartened, he returned home and shared what had happened with his mother. She was outraged, but not surprised. She reminded him of the struggles their ancestors had faced and how they continued to fight for justice. "Don't let them break you, Marcus," she said. "You are needed by the people. This city needs you, even if they don't realize it yet." Her words became a powerful source of support for Marcus. But that night, he couldn't sleep. It hurt and pained him to realize that despite all his efforts, the world around him had not changed as much as he had hoped. After the humiliating rejection, Marcus felt lost and angry. He couldn't just accept that his skin color had become a barrier to the job he had dreamed of. Yet doubts still simmered inside him. But his mother and close friends didn't allow him to sink into despair. "You don't have the right to give up," his mother insisted. "You are needed by the people, and if they won't let you into their system, create your own." These words spurred Marcus into action. He began meeting with other black doctors and discussing the challenges they faced. It turned out that many of them had encountered the same obstacles as he had: a lack of career opportunities, unfair treatment from management and colleagues. This only strengthened his resolve to change the situation. Marcus realized that the problem needed to be addressed systematically. He reached out to local activists and organizations, advocating for equality to draw attention to the issue of discrimination in healthcare. His story began to spread in the media, garnering public interest and a wave of support. This became an important step in his fight. Realizing that he could no longer wait for changes from the system, Marcus made the decision to open his own clinic for Black patients. He began seeking funding, reaching out to charitable organizations and influential people who shared his views. The support was modest, but it was enough for the first step, the launch of his idea. Thus, inspired by the support of his loved ones and the community, Marcus took the first step toward creating a place where anyone could receive help without fear and humiliation. The modest donations and public support became a starting point for Marcus to create his clinic. He rented a small space in a poor neighborhood where medical care was either inaccessible or prohibitively expensive for the local population. This place became his first project, a clinic where everyone could receive quality treatment regardless of skin color or financial status. The work in the clinic began with difficulties. Funding remained limited, and Marcus often spent his last money out of his own pocket to buy necessary medications. He enlisted the help of several former colleagues, doctors like him who had also been unable to find a place in the system due to racial discrimination. They worked day and night, seeing dozens of patients each day, often without payment. These people came to the clinic with all kinds of issues, from chronic diseases to serious injuries, and each time they left with gratitude. Marcus felt he was doing the right thing. Over time, word about Marcus's clinic began to spread. People told each other that in this place, they could receive decent medical care. It didn't matter if the patient was Black, poor, or had other challenges. Marcus and his team never turned anyone away. Their work attracted the attention of local journalists, who began writing articles about his clinic and its importance to the community. One of the key moments was the story of a little boy suffering from a chronic illness, but whose parents couldn't afford the expensive treatments at regular hospitals. When they brought him to Marcus, the boy was in poor condition, and other doctors had already given up on him. Marcus and his team immediately set to work, without thinking about the money. Within a few months, the boy's condition had significantly improved. This story spread across news channels, and Marcus's clinic became a symbol of hope for those whom society often forgets. Such success attracted the attention of large charitable foundations and business people who began offering support to the clinic. Marcus was now able to improve the equipment, attract more doctors, and expand the range of services. The clinic began to grow, and soon he was able to open a second and third clinic in other poor neighborhoods of the city. At the same time, his success started drawing the attention of the very hospital that had once rejected him for the job. The hospital's leadership could no longer ignore the fact that Marcus had built a successful network of clinics that were gaining people's trust. This started to threaten their reputation and profits. In an attempt to maintain their standing in the medical community, the hospital once again offered Marcus a position, this time at a higher level. Marcus accepted this offer as a sign of recognition, but he declined the job. Instead, he proposed a collaboration between the hospital and his network of clinics to expand access to quality healthcare for Black patients. His goal wasn't personal gain, but to change the system, to make it fair for everyone. The offer from the hospital to become their chief physician could have been a crowning career achievement for many, but not for Marcus. He knew his mission was much broader. Instead of personal triumph, he sought real changes in the healthcare system. Turning down the position, he made a move that shocked the hospital's leadership. In response to their offer, Marcus proposed something more ambitious: to unite the efforts of his clinics and the hospital to create a fair and accessible medical system for all, regardless of skin color or social status. The hospital's leadership, realizing that Marcus had become a significant figure in the medical community, couldn't ignore his proposal. They accepted his terms, albeit reluctantly, knowing that this could improve their reputation. This collaboration became a turning point. Thanks to Marcus's efforts, his clinics began receiving support from major medical institutions, allowing him to expand his network and provide care to even more people. Over time, Marcus's influence spread beyond his clinics. His story became an example for many young Black doctors who saw him not only as a successful physician, but as a leader capable of changing the system. He became a mentor for new generations of doctors, helping them find their paths in a world where skin color should no longer be a barrier to achieving their goals. However, not everyone was ready to acknowledge his success. some representatives of the old system still resisted change. Shortly after, the collaboration between Marcus's clinics and the hospital began to bear fruit. One of the senior doctors who had once denied Marcus a job tried to sabotage the project. He organized false inspections and spread rumors about the poor quality of care at Marcus's clinics. However, by then, Marcus had the support not only of patients, but also of local activists, the media, and even some politicians. These attempts soon failed, and the doctor himself was forced to leave his position after it was revealed that he had acted out of envy and bias. The culmination of the story came when Marcus was invited to speak at a major conference on healthcare equality. In his speech, he talked about the challenges he had faced and how his experiences had opened his eyes to the depth of the problems in the system. He spoke not only about racial discrimination, but also about the importance of changing the structure so that every person could receive quality care, regardless of skin color or social status. His words were met with loud applause, and many conference participants, including high-ranking officials and heads of medical institutions, promised to support his initiatives. This was a moment not just of recognition, but of true victory over a system that had long oppressed people like him. Marcus left the conference knowing that his fight was not yet over. He still had to continue developing his clinics and mentoring the next generation of doctors. But most importantly, he knew that his efforts had begun to change the system. People who had once rejected him because of his skin color now saw him as a leader capable of shaping the future of medicine. This journey from humiliation to recognition became not just a personal victory for Marcus, but a symbol of hope for thousands of people who had fought for their right to equality and justice.